Class, Mr. Moydin here with another limit problem to help you study for your test. As you should always start with, you plug in your limit value and you end up getting 2 minus 2 is 0 over 0. And that's a clue that another technique should work. Your next technique would be to factor and cancel, but I don't know how to factor this, and I'm not sure you do either. So now one could argue this is a form of factoring and that you're rewriting it, but for our purposes, we're going to try a technique called multiplying by the conjugate or rationalizing by multiplying by the conjugate. So the conjugate is produced by the radical term. So it's the square root here that's going to produce the part of the rational function that has a square root that creates the conjugate. So I'm going to take, in this case, the numerator, although in many problems it could well be the denominator, whichever part has the square root in it, and change the sign. So it was some business minus 2, and now it's that same business plus 2. And because I cannot change the fundamental nature of this problem, I must multiply it by this quantity over itself, thereby multiplying by 1, or the identity, without actually changing the problem as stated. So as mentioned in class, bottom here, these two things don't really have a whole lot in common, so I'm not actually going to multiply those out unless I have to, and what we'll find is we typically don't have to. The top, however, these are, this thing in red was created to mirror this thing here, the numerator in green. So I'm going to see what I can create by multiplying those out. So if I distribute, I get root x plus 1 times root x plus 1 is x plus 1. The middle two terms should cancel. I got 2 root x plus 1 minus 2 root x plus 1. So those cancel, and that gets me negative plus a positive times a positive is negative. 2 times 2, of course, is 4. So simplifying the top, that gives me x minus 3. And you'll notice I didn't really end up with anything that much better, at least at first glance, because I can't cancel anything the way I'm supposed to. However, these two look suspiciously similar to each other. So my intuition, or sort of my inspiration, I guess, is to factor out a negative 1 from the top in order for these two things to be identical. And again, I can do that because, well, one, I can factor anything I want out, but this is a smart thing to factor out because negative 1 times 3 is negative 3 that I had originally, and negative 1 times negative x is the positive x I had originally. So this blue numerator is in fact identical to this orange numerator. This allows me to cancel, giving me this statement here in red, which again, I've gotten rid of the pesky part that was giving me the 0 on the bottom, meaning I can plug 3 in now and see what happens. And I do that, and I get something as easy as 2 plus 2, and negative 1 on top, which gives us negative 1/4. Hope that, oh, excuse me, hope this helps.